Okay. Hi, Joy. Welcome back. We're going to jump right into some good topics here related to fluoride and some empowering information that, I think we all need. So, yeah, what have you got for us today then, Joy?
Well, we're going to talk about successes. That is, the local authorities who have declined the very great honour to be fluoridated or to fluoridate their constituents. We look at the polls. There's only 17 of them. There's a radio and newspaper polls. And we'll just have a quick look at the 3 consultations which have taken place in England.
Great. Sounds good.
So let's talk with the local authorities who have declined being fluoridated. And we can go back to 1958, when the first fluoridation demonstrations took place in 1955. After 2 to 3 years, Andover in Hampshire, which had been chosen as guinea pigs to test fluoride in the drinking water, throughout the serving local authority, put in councillors who were against fluoridation, and the day after they were put into office, then they sat in the council house and said, okay, we're going to tell the water company to stop fluoridating Andover. This is what they did. It's really very, very neat, very good. That's the only one, as far as we know, where that has really happened in practice. Back in 58, they were using sodium fluoride then, but these days they're using hexafluorosilicic acid, which is much more health damaging. So we were so happy to see this. And there is a book out on the actual Andover story. Can I see it? No, I can. It's called Something in the Water.
Oh, nice. Look at that. Oh, that's very cool.
It's a very nicely balanced book. It doesn't come out against fluoridation. It comes out and tells you the full story, the history of what happened in Andover. There were 3 other boroughs which were targeted for fluoridation demonstrations, and that was Watford, Kilmarnock, and Anglesey. They've all stopped fluoridating since. The last one to be fluoridated was in Anglesey in 1991, when Welsh Water said, we're not doing it anymore because the Department of Health are not going to indemnify us if somebody accuses us of damaging their health, which is very good. In those days, the water companies could do that. But after 2003, they were tied into existing schemes. So let me see. I'll just read out a long list if you don't mind. Will that be so boring? I hope not.
No,
so from 1958 in Andover, Kilmarnock 1960, Bolton 1968, Hull 1970. These weren't fluoridated. These are the ones who are refused to have it put in the water in the first place, apart from Andover and Kilmarnock. So Bolton, Hull, Lancashire in 1988, Blackburn in 1988, Blackpool, Burnley, Chorley, Fylde, Hyndburn, Lancaster, Pendle, Preston, Ribble Valley, Rossendale, South Ribble, Barrow-in-Furness and Carlisle all refused to have fluoride added to the drinking water. The local authority said, no way. Then we go up to 1989, Watford. That was when Watford stopped the demonstration. Copeland, which is in West Cumbria, they voted against it, but unfortunately the county council didn't listen to them. South Lakeland, 1988, High Peak, 1988, Sefton, Wirral, Bolton and Bury, Tameside and Wigan, all in 1988, they refused to have fluoridation. Then we go to Northern Ireland in the 1990s, all boroughs refused. That was helped a lot by local activists and by UK councils against fluoridation. Isle of Anglesey stopped in 1991-92. Bradford, 1993, refused it. London Assembly refused fluoridation in 2003 for the whole of London. Scotland refused it in 2004.
Just touching on London, because I know I was aware that they were still doing it actually. Is it not in London at the moment then, or is it just parts of London?
Not at all. And then there may be one area to the north east of London, Greater London, but I've never yet been able to confirm that.
Okay.
Okay, so Scotland refused in 2004. Wales said no in 2005. The East Riding of Yorkshire said no in 2005. Stockton-on-Tees, no in 2006. Sunderland in 2005. Rotherham in 2007. That was a very successful campaign mounted by the National Pure Water Association. They did a really good job there. Then Greater Manchester, that was a huge area, and it fell because, the proposal to fluoridate the whole of Greater Manchester failed because of the huge costs of the equipment. The Isle of Man refused in 2008. That was a mini consultation. Hampshire County Council, together with Southampton, refused between 2008 and 2011. Nottinghamshire and Leicestershire said no in 2011. Southampton in 2014, that's when the proposal fell completely. Bolton, 2014 again. Wakefield in 2016, Bedford in 2016, and Hull in 2015 to 2018. I need to go back to the Hampshire County Council and the Southampton proposal. Then there was a huge groundswell opinion against it. And when they finally got to the only legal public consultation in this country on fluoridation, the vote was 7,200 against fluoridation and 2,800 in favour. In those days, the Strategic Health Authority had the right to decide, and they told the 7,200 people, sorry, we're not going to listen to you. We have the power to veto your request, and we're going to go ahead anyway and fluoridate. Now, it happened, strangely enough, because it took several years for anything to happen. And by the time it could have happened, the Strategic Health Authority had been replaced by Public Health England, which didn't have the right to inherit the decision of the Strategic Health Authority. So that was a really good public consultation. We won it, but we didn't, because the regulations which came after the 2003 Water Act said that the Strategic Health Authority had the right to decide on based on the cogency of the arguments placed before them. But what they did, of course, they had the right also to just basically listen to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, the huge lot of hard work running up to 2009 public consultation. There was a very large active group down in Southampton. But we won it in the end, but only because the Strategic Health Authorities were dissolved.
Okay, so they were dissolved, but you said the Public Health England took over anyway. But how was the victory in the end there? Could you explain?
Also because they decided they'd want to fluoridate another part of Southampton, which had not been part of the original proposal, which means they would have had to go out to public consultation again after having gone through a feasibility study. They'd have had to go through the whole mechanism again, leading up to a public consultation. So it couldn't happen. The boat had left the harbour, in other words.
Okay.
So the people who are looking after the Southampton and Hampshire proposal were Hampshire Against Fluoridation, HAF, very strong, powerful anti-fluoridation group.
Do they still exist?
They don't have to, because they're not threatened.
Oh, it seems like they might be now.
May well be. Right, so
come back.
But the other thing, like Nottinghamshire and Leicestershire, every time we hear of anything rumbling, we get onto it as quickly as we can and write to the chief executive, the finance officer, the chairman of all the health and well-being boards, and just give them a lot of stuff to read so that it doesn't go any further, because what we're providing them with stops it happening in its tracks, provided we can get onto it quickly enough. What we didn't manage to do was to get onto Durham County Council in time, and by the time we found out about it, it had already gone through the Health and Wellbeing Board, and they were starting to get the feasibility study in from Northumberland Water. It was a bit late. And then, of course, we didn't actually get hold of the issue in Northumberland itself as quickly as we could have.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of shenanigans going on there. In fact, when we got to a case of going up there and talking to the Health and Wellbeing Board, we were given 7 days to prepare our case, whereas the opposition, the public health consultants, had 2 weeks in which to get their act together, because they were told about the dates a week before we were. So it was all hands to the grindstone. It was really a nasty time that week before we went up there. And when we got there, we found that the opposition had got about 4 times 15 minutes slots to talk to the councillors, whereas we were only given 20 minutes because we were just one organisation.
Okay. Yeah.
And same happened in Durham County when we went there to present. We had 20 people behind us who were supporting us. The dental public health consultants and dentists had about an hour to present in 4 different slots, all spread out throughout the meeting, whereas I had to give my presentation in the middle, which is never a good place to be, because they start by making a statement, people might remember that, and they finish by making their statements, and people will definitely remember that. So being in the middle is not a good thing. That's also a lot of shenanigans going on there as well. It was all contrived. It was really bad news. But did we win? I don't know, because by the time they were going to make a decision, COVID struck. And all Public Health England energies were then put towards trying to sort themselves out as far as lockdowns and anything to do with COVID. So
Okay.
nothing's happened up in the northeast since COVID struck.
So so that means it hasn't been added at all.
No, it hasn't.
No progress. Well,
No way.
that's good in one way at least.
Would it have been added if we hadn't been involved? Probably not. They would have still had to go through the 3-month public consultation.
Mm-hmm.
So the people up northeast haven't had a consultation, and they will still have to have one, no matter what happens next year if the government takes over the whole operation.
Yeah. So that was going to be my next question: is should the government continue to attempt to do this? Is there going to have to be like a consultation at every level of the council to do this? How would how it would work?
My fear is that they're going to do one public consultation for the whole of England, but I don't see how they can. There's no way they can get all that equipment in place in time to do it all at once. I think they're going to have to do a public consultation for each local authority. That would give us time, but it means we'd be forever going up to these meetings and doing a presentation. But no, as time goes by, we've got so much more strong evidence, which will make the local authorities sit up and think. You can't possibly put stuff in drinking water which will reduce children's intelligence.
Right, exactly. And like I imagine if this was to happen and it was done like on a local basis and you had like a good template and you had a victory here, it could be very easily translated to another group in another area of the country.
Yes.
So yeah, let's see how they try and go about it. Interesting. But it's very inspiring to hear about all of these different areas around the UK that have said no, we don't want this, and how there must have been a huge amount of activists all around the country as well getting behind these movements, stopping these rollouts. So what's to say we can't do it again? Should they be so daring?
What I haven't said is, of course, that list of 48 local authorities does not include the ones where there've been a sort of a whisper, where I've just basically sent stuff to them when I heard the whisper, and nothing happened. And
so there was like no progress, that the government's just sort of said, hello, do you want this? And it didn't go any further than that, basically.
Yeah, Public Health England attached to each local authority just trying to push things to happen. And as soon as I hear that's happening, I send them all the stuff I can, including the Public Health England consultant, because they need to know what there is as well. And that just sort of dies a death. The last one was Calderdale, which is Halifax. We never heard anything about it after the first rumour that they were thinking about it.
That's awesome. Very inspiring.
It is. Well, it is and it isn't, because we don't get any credit for our success, which is a problem.
So this line of field of work is it's a thankless task, that's for sure. I'm sure someone recognises it though somewhere.
somewhere, hopefully. What do I want to say else? Let me see now. Wakefield was a very nice exercise for us. We joined forces with Wakefield Against Fluoridation, and we attended the Health and Wellbeing Board as they were looking at the evidence. They said to anybody who wanted to take part that they only wanted to see research evidence which had been published in the last 7 years, since the last time they looked at the issue in, say, 2007. Let me just check that, 2009. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And so we took all the stuff we had, which had been published in those 7 years, and we made a case of it in front of this rather nice Health and Wellbeing Board with a really nice chair lady and a really nice officer looking after the board. They have to be neutral, but he was very, very accommodating, and you could see that, you know, he was putting smiles in our direction, which was really good. So we gave the evidence, and we left, and we were thanked. And a few weeks later, we heard that they were not going to progress the proposal.
Nice.
But they didn't give us the credit for it.
Yeah.
There's just something about the fact that, well, any evidence in support of fluoridation since 2009 was not convincing.
Yeah. And I guess as well, they have to be cautious, as should they let people know that there's been a victory here, and then we get a taste for it and know that it's not actually that hard, then spread like wildfire.
Exactly, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The polls, the radio and newspaper polls are really interesting. A lot of them took place in the north. That's where seems to be all the actions taking place. And if I say to you that of the 17 polls, the percentage of people who took part was between 97% and 63%. And the Isle of Man was the only disappointing one, where there were about 100 people present. It was 1,000 people who were asked, and 54% said no, including the police chief on the island.
Yeah, so that's crucial. It was 97% to 60-something% that said no, we don't want it.
Correct, but the Isle of Man was also backed up by the police chief, who said she didn't want these huge lorries, tankers, going across the island with this hazardous waste. So
there you go. Nice.
So there you go. That's the rundown of what's happened in England and Wales and Scotland. Scotland, as far as we're aware, has legislated against it, and also they've got case precedent where Judge Lord Jauncey in 1983 said that, as far as he was concerned, any type of fluoride would be regarded as being a medicine, and therefore could not be put into drinking water, which made the drinking water medicine. And this is where we're at the moment. It's a very important thing to appreciate. Let's go back to the Drinking Water Directive, European, and it's been retained post-Brexit. So the definition of drinking water is still there, and what isn't drinking water is bottled water, like natural mineral water, and any water which has a medicinal purpose, such as spa water from Bath, or in Baden-Baden, or anything which purports to be a medicine. And of course, fluoridated water is a medicine. It certainly isn't drinking water, because it's no longer there to nourish us. It's there to make sure that our teeth are made resistant to dental decay. So therefore, it's a prophylactic, rather like vaccines. But for vaccines, people can say no. They can say no. For water fluoridation, if we go into a public consultation and it's rigged against us, as we expect it's going to be from next year onwards, we do not get asked for our permission. Only the people who take part in the consultation are making their wishes known, but they're still not being listened to. And they will not be listened to, because the agenda, the policy is to put fluoride in our drinking water. So public consultations, we don't really have much favor. We just can't favor them. We just can't have any faith in what's going to come out at the other end.
But yeah, so it's still good that there's like there's clearly a huge portion of people who are against this measure already, and there've already been many battles that I wasn't even aware of, where people have done this already and fought back against fluoride. So that shows that we can do it again, and we just got to get enough awareness, enough people knowing about this, and yeah, because it seems being quite common. It's coming up that people think it's already in our water supplies everywhere, and I don't know where that's come from. It's only a small percentage of England, less than 10%, was it, right?
Yes, yes.
So yeah, it's not all in our water. We don't need it, and we can stop it. And yeah, this is where we're at. The Fluoride Free Alliance.
It's really great that we've got all these people on the Telegram social network. Really good. And we've got more people now on the UK FFFA website, email list, and then more every day coming on. We need to get ourselves together. We need to get local groups sorted out via Telegram, as many as we can. And that's our next daunting task, is to try and ask the Telegram members to start to join their local groups.
Yes, which would be crucial to take this to battle locally. And I imagine eventually we'll have one for like every county, and we'll need at least 1 or 2 proactive members in each county to sort of lead those groups. So if you are any of those people, join our Telegram group, which is Fluoride Free Alliance UK. You can find it, search for it, and then just message in there saying you want to help out. If you're serious about stopping fluoride being added to your water, yeah, come join us, and we'll put you somewhere useful. Great.
And now we have to just mention the petition.
Yes. So go on.
So at the last count, it's 34,000. Let me a second. 34,500, I think. Yeah, 34,450. We are trying to boost it up to 100,000 so we can force a debate in the House of Commons. So it's a case of everybody who's listening. If you haven't already done so, please sign it and share it with your contact list. And hopefully that will cascade down through everybody else's contact lists.
That's it.
To know that we are against it, that we're not in the minority. We are not. When people get down the rope, as it were, they get so angry about this. And yeah, it's a really bad thing to do, because they're not being asked for our informed consent to have a medicine added to our drinking water.
Right, and they even if it's a medicine, it's definitely not good for us in any way anyway. So it's a pretty toxic medicine. Okay, cool. Well, yeah, that's I think that's a good place to wrap it up there. It's been a very inspiring quick video for me, and I hope everyone else listening finds this information as empowering as I have, and we'll take it to the next steps as we go on.
Okay, thank you very much for asking me.
Cool. Speak soon.